My mother-in-law was convinced my bad energy was lingering in the house my husband and I just bought. While we were out, she let herself in and performed a cleansing ritual with sage. We came home to the entire house smelling like a bonfire and all the smoke alarms blaring. She proudly told us she had banished my negativity from the master bedroom, but now the fire department was on its way. My father-in-law is notoriously cheap. For my wife's birthday, he insisted on taking the whole family out to a fancy steakhouse. When the bill for over $200 came, he confidently slapped down a coupon he'd clipped from the newspaper. The waiter politely explained that the coupon was for a free appetizer with the purchase of 2 entrees, not for the entire meal. He argued for 10 minutes that it should cover everything. My sister-in-law has to be the center of attention. At my baby shower, surrounded by all my friends and family, she stood up to make a special toast. Instead of toasting me or the baby, she announced that she was pregnant. The room went silent as she beamed, completely hijacking the entire event. She later admitted she wasn't even sure if she was pregnant, but didn't want me to have all the glory. My father-in-law fancies himself a handyman. My dishwasher was making a weird noise, so he insisted he could fix it. I came home to find the entire kitchen flooded. He had disconnected the main water line, but forgot to turn off the valve first. He proudly proclaimed, "Well, I found the problem. It's definitely a water issue." It cost me $1,000 in water damage repairs and a new dishwasher. My mother-in-law constantly criticizes my cooking. For Thanksgiving, she offered to help by bringing a few side dishes. She arrived with an entire duplicate Thanksgiving meal: turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, everything. She then told all the guests to eat her food instead, because mine was probably too spicy or undercooked. My own husband was too scared to touch the food I had spent all day making. When our son was a baby, my mother-in-law insisted that rubbing whiskey on his gums was the only way to soothe teething pain. I repeatedly told her no. One day I came home early and found her dabbing Jack Daniels on my 6-month-old's gums. She just smiled and said, "See, he's much calmer now." The baby wasn't calmer, he was just confused about the strange taste. My brother-in-law is convinced he's an undiscovered genius investor. He tried to convince my husband and me to invest our life savings into a revolutionary new company that sells designer water for pets. He claimed it was hydrodynamically balanced for canine palates. We politely declined. A year later, he asked to borrow money because his genius investment went bankrupt. My mother-in-law rearranged our entire kitchen while we were on vacation because she didn't like my organizational system. I came home and couldn't find anything. The pots and pans were in the pantry, the silverware was in a drawer on the other side of the room, and she had put all the spices in alphabetical order, including putting the cinnamon next to the cumin. It took me a week to put it all back. My father-in-law heard that squirrels were getting into our attic. Instead of calling an exterminator, he decided to handle it himself. His brilliant plan was to climb on the roof and blast an air horn into the vents to scare them out. He ended up falling off the ladder, breaking his wrist, and scaring nothing but our neighbours, who thought there was an emergency. For our wedding, my mother-in-law insisted on wearing a white lacy dress that looked suspiciously like a wedding gown. When people commented on it, she would laugh and say, "Well, I'm the other most important woman here today." She spent the entire reception telling people how much better the wedding would have been if she had planned it. She even tried to get the DJ to play her wedding song for a special dance with her son. My sister-in-law borrowed my favourite dress for a party without asking. When I finally got it back, it had a huge red wine stain on it. Her apology was, "Well, you shouldn't have bought a dress that makes people want to spill things on it. It was just too distracting." I still have no idea what that was supposed to mean, but I never got the stain out. My father-in-law believes any electronic device can be fixed by hitting it. My laptop was running slow, and he offered to take a look. I walked in to see him giving it several hard smacks on the side. He looked up at me with complete confidence and said, "Sometimes you just have to knock the slow out of it." The screen was cracked and it wouldn't even turn on after his fix. My mother-in-law is obsessed with my husband's health. She once called me in a panic because she had a dream that he had a vitamin D deficiency. She then showed up at our house with 3 industrial-sized bottles of vitamin D supplements and demanded he start taking 10 pills a day. I had to show her his recent blood work from the doctor to prove he was perfectly fine. My brother-in-law decided to brew his own beer in his garage. He was so proud of his first batch and brought a case over for a family barbecue. Everyone who tried it politely choked it down. It tasted like bread-flavoured swamp water. He didn't notice and spent the whole day talking about his plans to open a microbrewery. We all just nodded and smiled, praying he wouldn't. My mother-in-law thinks expiration dates are just suggestions from the government to make you waste money. She once served us a delicious yogurt dip that tasted a bit off. After she mentioned she found the yogurt in the back of her fridge, my wife checked the date. It had expired 6 months ago. We spent the rest of the evening feeling sick while she insisted it was perfectly fine. My father-in-law tried to install a new ceiling fan in our living room. He refused to read the instructions, claiming he had instincts for these things. A few hours later, we turned it on, and the entire fan wobbled violently before detaching from the ceiling and crashing onto our coffee table, shattering it. His only comment was, must have been a defective fan." My sister-in-law is a self-proclaimed influencer with about 200 followers. She tried to get a free meal at my birthday dinner by telling the restaurant manager that she would give them a shout-out on her Instagram. The manager just stared at her blankly and handed her the bill. She was genuinely shocked that her fame didn't work and complained about it the whole way home. My mother-in-law is convinced that microwaves cause cancer. She came over and saw us heating up leftovers and had a complete meltdown. She unplugged our microwave and tried to carry it out to the trash, telling us she was saving our lives. My husband had to physically take it from her and explain that we were not getting rid of our microwave. My father-in-law decided to trim a large branch off the tree in our front yard. Instead of using a saw, he thought it would be more efficient to tie a rope to it and pull it off with his truck. He gunned the engine, the branch snapped and flew backwards, shattering his truck's rear window. He just stood there, looked at the branch, looked at his truck and said, "Well, the branch is down." For Christmas, my mother-in-law gave me a gym membership and a scale. She smiled sweetly and said, "I just want you to be healthy for my son." I'm a perfectly healthy weight. My husband was mortified, but she saw absolutely nothing wrong with her thoughtful gift. The next year, I gave her a book on social etiquette. My brother-in-law house sat for us while we were away. We have one simple rule: no parties. We came home to find a strange person sleeping on our couch and the whole house a mess. He swore he didn't have a party, just a small, intimate gathering of 40 of his closest friends. He couldn't understand why we were upset. My mother-in-law believes she is a psychic. She constantly calls to warn me about bad omens she's seen. One time, she called to tell me not to leave the house because she saw a black cat, which meant I would get into a car accident. I had to remind her that we own a black cat, and he's currently sleeping on my lap. She paused and said, "Oh, well, still be careful." My father-in-law tried to deep fry a frozen turkey for Thanksgiving. He dropped the solid ice bird into a vat of boiling oil, causing a massive grease fire on the back porch. He managed to put it out with the garden hose, but the turkey was ruined and the side of the house was charred. He still maintains that his only mistake was that the oil wasn't hot enough. My sister-in-law is incredibly competitive. We were playing a friendly game of charades at a family gathering. When her team started losing, she accused my team of cheating with telepathy and stormed out of the room. She refused to speak to me for the rest of the night because I correctly guessed my husband was acting out the Lion King. My mother-in-law came over to help with our newborn. Her help consisted of holding the baby while I cleaned the entire house. When I finally sat down to rest, she handed the baby back to me and said, "He's fussy, he must be hungry," and then proceeded to tell me all the things I had missed while cleaning. It was the most exhausting help I've ever received. My father-in-law is convinced he can speak Spanish after watching a few travel shows. We went to a Mexican restaurant and he insisted on ordering for the whole table in what he thought was fluent Spanish. The waiter, who was from Mexico, looked utterly bewildered. After a long, awkward exchange, the waiter just replied in perfect English, "So, you want the number 7 combo?" My mother-in-law bought my husband and me a joint Christmas gift, a large, framed portrait of herself. It was a professional glamour shot from 20 years ago. She told us to hang it in our bedroom so we could wake up to a smiling face every day. The portrait is currently sitting in the back of a closet. My brother-in-law tried to prove that our yappy little dog wasn't a good guard dog. His genius idea was to dress in all black, wear a ski mask, and try to break in through the back door at 1 a.m. to test the dog's reaction. He didn't tell anyone. I heard a noise, saw a masked figure, and called the police. They arrived just as he was trying to explain his plan to my terrified wife. My mother-in-law is a terrible driver, but won't admit it. She backed her car directly into our mailbox, completely flattening it. She got out, looked at the mangled metal post, and said with a straight face, "They just don't build mailboxes like they used to. This thing must have been defective." She never offered to pay for a new one. My father-in-law decided our lawn needed to be aerated. Instead of renting the proper equipment, he walked around the entire yard for an hour wearing a pair of golf cleats. He was convinced he had done a professional level job. All he actually did was leave a bunch of tiny, useless holes in the grass and ruin a perfectly good pair of shoes. My sister-in-law is vegan, which is fine, but she tries to convert everyone. At my son's 5th birthday party, she replaced the entire chocolate birthday cake I bought with a healthier avocado and carob cake without telling me. The kids took one bite and refused to eat it. She then gave a lecture to a group of 5-year-olds about the evils of dairy. My mother-in-law is terrified of germs. When she comes to visit, she brings her own set of silverware wrapped in plastic. She also wipes down every surface she might touch with antibacterial wipes, including the remote control and door handles. One time, she tried to wipe down my cat because he looked dusty. The cat was not pleased. My mother-in-law doesn't understand how Facebook works. She posted an unflattering photo of me sleeping on the couch, mouth wide open, and tagged me in it. The caption read, "My daughter-in-law is so beautiful even when she's exhausted, a true natural beauty." When I asked her to take it down, she was genuinely hurt and said she thought it was a huge compliment. My father-in-law overheard my husband say he was finally taking the plunge on buying a new truck. My FIL misunderstood and called the entire extended family to announce that we were expecting a baby and installing a swimming pool. We spent the next week getting congratulatory calls and explaining that there was no baby and definitely no pool. While I was pregnant, my mother-in-law was obsessed with us naming the baby after her. Her name is Gertrude. She started buying clothes and blankets monogrammed with a giant G. When we announced our daughter's actual name, she burst into tears at the hospital and accused us of erasing her from the family legacy.